I'm Hannah Clark, 27, and I never imagined a regular Thursday morning could make the foundation of my life crack. For the past 3 years, I'd been with Edward Jones, 28. Nearly 2 of those years, we shared an apartment that smelled like home, coffee brewing in the morning, lazy weekend brunches, quiet evenings curled up on the sofa. I thought I knew him. I thought I knew what it meant to trust someone completely. It started innocuously. I was scrolling through our joint account on my phone, checking balances, paying bills like I always did. A number jumped out at me, a withdrawal I hadn't authorized, not small either, tens of thousands of dollars gone. My stomach clenched. My first thought was some kind of bank error, but when I checked the details, the recipient name made my blood run cold. Edward. His ex-girlfriend's name appeared in several transactions I hadn't seen before. The line between disbelief and panic blurred. I stared at the screen, gripping the edge of the counter, my coffee going cold in the mug. "Hannah?" Edward's voice echoed from the bedroom. I jumped, sliding the phone into my pocket. He appeared in the doorway, tousled hair, casual smile, completely unaware that the world had just tilted under my feet. "Everything okay?" he asked. Innocent, relaxed, but I felt the tremor of unease ripple through me. I nodded too quickly. "Yeah, just checking the accounts." He peered over my shoulder. "All good?" "All good," I said, but I didn't sound convincing. And he knew it. He always knew when I was hiding something, and he thrived on making me doubt myself. The coffee in my hand felt heavy, my heartbeat loud enough that I was sure he could hear it. I excused myself and went to our bedroom, locking the door behind me. Pulling out my laptop, I started tracing the transactions, documenting each one, feeling a sense of foreboding I couldn't shake. It wasn't just the money. It was the pattern, the withdrawals, the secretive transfers, the little excuses he'd given about investing in mutual opportunities. Every smile, every casual laugh suddenly felt like part of a performance designed to conceal this. I thought about the past weeks, the late nights he spent at work, the calls he took outside the apartment, the moments when he seemed distracted, almost evasive. Was this why he had seemed different lately? I realized, with a pit forming in my stomach, that I had been ignoring subtle warning signs. My mind raced through conversations, trying to pinpoint when the cracks had first appeared. I sat on the edge of our bed and let the anger simmer quietly. I loved him. I really did. But love didn't make blind trust safe anymore. This felt like betrayal in its purest form. And worse, it was invisible, hidden behind the guise of normality. By the time Edward came back to the bedroom with his usual grin, I had made a decision. I needed to know the full scope before confronting him. "I have some work to finish," I said, closing my laptop softly. He didn't ask more. He never did when I seemed preoccupied. I could hear the faint thud of his steps as he returned to the living room. I stared out the window, the city below buzzing like life went on, oblivious to the chaos quietly unfolding in our apartment. How long had he been doing this? How much had he hidden? Questions without answers clawed at me. I knew one thing. Whatever he was doing, it wasn't harmless, and it wasn't temporary. I pulled out my phone again and drafted a text to Emma, my best friend, my sounding board. "Need advice. Something's off. Large withdrawals in joint account. Edward, I don't know what to do." Within minutes, Emma responded, "Hannah, trust your gut. Track everything. Don't confront him yet. Gather proof." Proof. That word made me shiver. This wasn't just intuition anymore. It was preparation. I had to be methodical. I had to know what I was dealing with before taking the first step. That night, I lay awake next to Edward, listening to the even rhythm of his breathing, feeling 1,000 miles away from him. The man I had loved, the life I thought we shared, suddenly seemed like a fragile illusion. Every smile, every shared coffee, every whispered, "I love you," now felt like part of a carefully constructed mask. Sleep came in fitful, uneasy waves. By morning, I had a plan forming in my mind, as meticulous as it was painful. I would uncover the truth no matter how ugly it was, and once I had it, I would decide what to do next. Because betrayal, real betrayal, wasn't something to ignore. It demanded acknowledgement. It demanded reckoning. And I was ready to face it. The next few days were a blur of quiet investigation. I became a shadow in my own home, opening spreadsheets, cross-referencing account statements, and piecing together the mosaic of Edward's secret life. The deeper I dug, the uglier the picture became. Withdrawals I had initially dismissed as business expenses were linked to investments I had never approved. Some payments traced back to his ex-girlfriend, Lauren, a name I had only ever heard in passing. Edward noticed my quiet intensity, but misread it entirely. He assumed I was stressed over work or personal errands, never guessing the storm brewing behind my eyes. One evening, he leaned against the doorframe, casual smile masking something else. "You've been awfully quiet, Jules. Everything okay?" I forced a smile, hiding the tension in my jaw. "Yeah, just catching up on emails." He nodded, but there was a flicker of something, was it nervousness, in his eyes. I made a mental note. Every micro-expression, every hesitation could be a clue. I started keeping a journal, documenting everything. His vague excuses, the missing receipts, the late-night calls he quickly ended when I entered the room. My anxiety deepened, but so did my resolve. I couldn't confront him without irrefutable proof. If I acted too soon, he would twist it, gaslight me, make me feel crazy for suspecting him. Emma sensed my turmoil immediately. We met at our favorite cafe, the one with the warm, amber lighting and overstuffed chairs. "You look like you haven't slept in days," she said, sliding me a cup of coffee. "Talk to me." I hesitated, staring at the liquid warmth in my hands, but I needed someone to validate my instincts. "It's Edward. There's money missing. Large sums, and I think it's connected to Lauren." Emma's eyes widened. "Oh, Hannah, that's serious. You need a plan. Don't confront him alone, and document everything." "I'm tracking it. Every withdrawal, every deposit. It's like he's living a parallel life, Emma. The Edward I know, he wouldn't do this." "That's exactly why he's dangerous," Emma said softly. "The people who betray you most are the ones you'd never suspect. You need hard evidence, a financial investigator." Her words, though practical, stung. I didn't want to see him as someone capable of betrayal, but denial was luxury I could no longer afford. That night, I made the call. A woman named Clara, a private financial investigator, agreed to help. By the end of the week, we were tracing every account, every transaction, every anomaly. The more we uncovered, the more my sense of betrayal solidified. Edward had hidden debts, siphoned funds into accounts I couldn't access, and funded lavish outings for Lauren, all while maintaining his polished, caring facade at home. The psychological toll was enormous. I found myself questioning every memory, the weekend getaway he planned, the dinner he cooked, the way he kissed me. Had any of it been genuine, or was it all part of the illusion? Then came the confrontation I had dreaded, but knew was inevitable. It was a Thursday evening, soft amber light spilling into the living room. Edward looked up from the couch, smiling. "Hey, Jules, you've been tense. Want to talk?" I closed my laptop with deliberate calm. "Edward, we need to talk." He frowned, masking concern with casual charm. "Of course. What's on your mind?" I took a deep breath, keeping my voice steady. "I've been reviewing our accounts. Do you want to explain the withdrawals linked to Lauren? Thousands of dollars I never approved." He blinked, just slightly, an almost imperceptible hesitation. That's just some investments I thought would be good for us." "For us?" I echoed, my voice rising slightly. "Why wasn't I consulted? Why did you hide it? Why did it go into accounts I can't access?" He leaned back, smiling faintly, trying to charm me. "Jules, you're overreacting. It's nothing serious. I just did what I thought was best for both of us." I shook my head. "No, Edward. You made financial decisions without my knowledge. And some of it, maybe a lot of it, was for Lauren. I've been tracing every transaction." The tension was almost physical. I could see the muscle in his jaw tighten. Gaslighting is an art, I realized. He tried to minimize, to distract, to make me doubt myself. "You're jumping to conclusions," he said softly. "I can explain everything. Give me a chance." I swallowed hard, anger burning quietly in my chest. "No, Edward. I want the truth, and I want proof. I'm not arguing. I'm not negotiating. I'm watching, and I'm documenting. This ends when I have full transparency." For the first time, I saw fear flash in his eyes. Not regret, not guilt, fear. Fear of exposure. And for the first time, I understood the gravity of his deception. He hadn't mismanaged money. He had built a house of lies. That night, after he went to bed, I called Clara. "I need a full audit, every account, every transfer, every hidden asset. I want a clear picture before I do anything." Understood, Clara said. I'll be thorough. You'll know everything soon. As I lay awake, listening to the city hum outside our window, I felt a mixture of fear, betrayal, and determination. I had loved him, trusted him, and believed in our life together. Now every smile, every touch, every whispered "I love you" was tainted. But I also felt a flicker of resolve. Betrayal was painful, yes, but it was also clarity. It gave me the insight to act, to protect myself, to reclaim control, and I would. Because Edward's deception wasn't just about money, it was about trust. And trust, once broken, demanded consequences. The night I finally held the full report in my hands, I felt a strange combination of fury and numbness. Every hidden account, every unauthorized transfer, every lavish gift to Lauren, it was all there, irrefutable, laid out in black and white. I had been betrayed in the most intimate way possible, not through anger or violence, but through manipulation, deception, and cold calculation. I waited until Edward came home from his late meeting. The apartment smelled faintly of his cologne, a scent I once associated with comfort. Now it made my stomach twist. He smiled as he stepped inside. "Hey, Jules, you're home early. Everything okay?" I didn't answer. I simply held up the folder, letting the papers fan out in his line of sight. The casual air in his posture faltered, just slightly. "What's that?" he asked, though he already knew. "This," I said, my voice calm but sharp, "is the truth about every financial move you've made without my knowledge. Every secret account, every transfer, every transaction linked to Lauren, every excuse you fed me, every lie you were hoping I'd never find out." He opened his mouth, started with something rehearsed. "Jules, it's not—" "Don't!" I cut him off. "Don't gaslight me. Don't charm me. I have everything, Edward. Everything. I know who you've been, who you've lied to, and what you've been hiding." His jaw tightened, and for the first time I saw vulnerability. Not guilt, not regret, but fear. Fear that I had discovered the depth of his deception. "I didn't mean for it to get like this," he said, voice low, trying to soften, to manipulate. "I just thought I was protecting us. I didn't think you'd take it this way." "Protecting us?" I repeated, incredulous. "By siphoning tens of thousands into accounts I can't touch? By funding Lauren? By lying to me every day?" He ran a hand through his hair, pacing slightly. "Jules, it's not what you think." "I know exactly what I think," I said, "and I know enough to never trust you again." For a long moment we stood in silence, the air thick with years of intimacy, now turned toxic. I could see the man I had loved, the life I had built with him, disintegrating in front of me. And yet, I felt a clarity I hadn't known before. I laid out the consequences. Locks changed, access revoked, accounts frozen, and legal counsel retained. I had called Clara, the investigator, to ensure that no asset could be moved without my knowledge. I wasn't seeking revenge. I was seeking protection, justice, and closure. Edward's face shifted through a spectrum of emotions: shock, denial, disbelief. "Hannah, you can't just do this. We can fix it. Counseling, therapy, whatever it takes. Just don't make this permanent." "It's already permanent, Edward," I said softly, almost sorrowfully. "Your betrayal has permanence. You don't get to decide whether it matters or not. You chose deception over honesty. You chose manipulation over partnership. And now you live with those choices." He fell silent, finally understanding that charm, manipulation, and excuses had no power here. I had seen behind the mask, and I refused to look away. The next morning, I began the process of separating our lives completely. Locks were changed, passwords updated, accounts secured. Edward tried calls, messages, frantic apologies, but I ignored them all. Every ignored call was a reaffirmation that I was taking control of my life, my finances, and my heart. Even as I did this, I wasn't without emotion. There was grief, of course, and lingering love twisted with betrayal, but there was also a fierce empowerment. The man who had once been my safe harbor was now an architect of my caution, and I was stronger for it. At night, I reflected on the irony. I had loved him so deeply, and yet the very depth of that love made the betrayal sting sharper. But in uncovering the truth, I also discovered myself, the capacity to act decisively, to protect myself, and to honor my worth. The confrontation wasn't loud or public. It didn't involve screaming or dramatic gestures. It was calm, precise, and inevitable. And in that quiet power, I felt something I hadn't in a long time: control. Because betrayal may shatter trust, but it doesn't have to shatter you. And that night, I realized, while Edward had built a web of lies around us, I had found the path out. The days after the confrontation felt surreal. Edward's frantic attempts to regain control came in waves: emails, texts, even surprise visits to our apartment. But I didn't respond. Not once. Each ignored call reinforced a quiet power I had never felt before. He was the same man I had loved, yet completely unrecognizable. I spent hours with Clara, tracing the money trail, confirming the full scope of his deception. The numbers were staggering. Every transfer, every hidden account, every investment I had never approved was now documented. His manipulation extended far beyond finances. He had carefully constructed a parallel life, one in which I was unaware and powerless. But not anymore. Friends began to notice a change in me. Some offered support, others quietly distanced themselves, unwilling to take sides. Emma became my anchor. "You're doing the right thing, Hannah," she said one evening over coffee. "He's trying to rewrite the story, but you have the facts, and you're strong enough to hold him accountable." Even Edward's ex, Lauren, got involved, trying subtly to interfere, to sow doubt, to charm her way into the narrative. But I wasn't falling for it. Her presence only strengthened my resolve. Betrayal is often more about the manipulator than the manipulated, and I refused to play into their game. Meanwhile, I enlisted legal counsel to secure my finances and protect myself from any further schemes. The lawyer confirmed my actions: changing locks, revoking access to joint accounts, freezing transfers. It was all within my rights. The law was on my side, but more importantly, so was my determination. Despite the victories, the emotional toll was heavy. Sleep was fractured, appetite uncertain, and moments of doubt crept in. Could I have missed something earlier? Was I overreacting? But every transaction, every document, every calculated deception reminded me that my instincts were right. I hadn't misjudged him. I had simply underestimated his capacity for duplicity. Edward didn't stop trying. He sent long messages pleading for explanations, crying out for forgiveness, and even threatening legal action. I deleted each one without hesitation. My silence was louder than any argument I could make. It said, "I see what you've done. I know who you are, and I'm done." The social fallout was subtle but palpable. Mutual friends asked questions, some probing, some accusatory, based on rumors Edward had spun. "Are you sure you're not overreacting?" one friend asked. But I had the evidence, the timeline, the paper trail. I could let the truth speak for itself. And slowly, I began to rebuild. My apartment, once a shared space of love and comfort, became my sanctuary. The locks, the cameras, the secure accounts, they weren't just protections. They were symbols of autonomy, reminders that I was in control. Every small victory, the simple act of checking my own accounts without fear, enjoying a quiet evening alone, reclaiming my space, was a declaration of independence. I started seeing a therapist, someone impartial to help untangle the emotional knots left by betrayal. Sessions revealed something I hadn't fully admitted. The depth of trust I had invested in Edward made the deception far more painful, but also gave me the insight to act decisively. Betrayal doesn't just harm, it illuminates. And in that light, I could see the path forward clearly. By the end of the month, the chaos had stabilized. Edward's manipulations had failed. His attempts to disrupt my life impotent against preparation and resolve. I was free. Not just from him, but from the illusions I had clung to. And in that freedom, I found clarity. I understood that life after betrayal isn't about revenge. It's about preservation, strength, and reclaiming what is yours: peace, security, and self-respect. Watching Edward flail, realizing the consequences of his own actions, was not satisfaction, it was justice. The process of separating our lives completely, from finances to shared spaces, was meticulous and deliberate. Each action reaffirmed my autonomy. Each boundary I set reaffirmed my worth. It was slow, sometimes painful, but it was necessary. In the quiet moments, I allowed myself to reflect, to grieve, to process. The betrayal had been deep, personal, and disorienting. But it had also forged something within me, a sense of empowerment, a recognition of my own resilience. I was learning to trust myself again, cautiously, deliberately, and wisely. By the time the dust settled, the apartment, my accounts, and my life were secure. Edward's frantic attempts at manipulation had subsided. Friends who mattered had stayed. Those who hadn't simply fell away. And for the first time in months, I could breathe without fear, knowing I had reclaimed what was mine. Months passed, and with each day, the chaos Edward had created receded further into the past. The apartment, once heavy with tension and secrecy, now felt like mine. Every corner, every wall, every drawer held not memories of betrayal, but symbols of resilience. I had taken control of my finances, my space, and my choices, and it was liberating. Friends and colleagues who had doubted me slowly realized the truth. Some apologized for being swayed by Edward's manipulations, but I didn't need their validation. I had my own. I had clarity. And that clarity was more satisfying than any apology could be. I started seeing someone new, carefully, slowly. Ethan, a fellow professional I met through work, was kind, patient, and transparent, a stark contrast to Edward. It wasn't about replacing him. It was about rebuilding trust, slowly, with someone who respected boundaries and honesty. The process of reclaiming life was more than emotional. It was practical, too. I sold shared items that carried lingering echoes of deceit, reorganized my finances, and invested in my own security. Every decision was deliberate, a statement that I would no longer allow another to dictate my life or manipulate my trust. And then came the quiet moments, the ones that truly measured my growth. Sitting in my living room with a book, a cup of tea in hand, I reflected on everything that had happened. The anger, the betrayal, the sleepless nights. They had all shaped me, but they no longer controlled me. I was free, not just from Edward, but from the fear, the doubt, and the illusion that someone else could define my worth. Edward tried one last time, an email filled with excuses, apologies, and subtle threats. I didn't respond. Silence was my final boundary. I had learned that closure doesn't always come from confrontation. Sometimes it comes from walking away and allowing the consequences to fall where they may. The experience left scars, of course. Trust had to be rebuilt carefully, and I was cautious about whom I let close. But I also discovered something unexpected: resilience, clarity, and the capacity to love myself fully. Betrayal had forced me to see my own strength, and I would never forget that lesson. Looking back, it's strange to think how easily deception can hide in plain sight, behind smiles, shared routines, and whispered I love yous. But I emerged not broken, but vigilant, empowered, and alive with possibility. I began to embrace life again, traveling, reconnecting with friends, pursuing passions I had shelved, and even planning future goals without fear. Every decision was mine, every choice deliberate. And in the quiet moments, when the city hummed outside my window, I felt the most profound peace. I had survived betrayal, uncovered the truth, and reclaimed my life. Edward's lies were no longer chains. They were reminders of lessons learned. Betrayal had tested me, but it did not define me. I was the author of my own story now, and I was writing it on my terms. The past was behind me, and the future, untouched, unpredictable, and entirely mine, awaited.